it's Ramsey Dewey at the JX Fight Club in Shanghai, China. Here today with my friend Igor. We're doing some sparring. Igor's from Russia, fantastic boxer. He does professional boxing, kickboxing, mixed martial arts. And today we're going to talk about sparring. I've got this weird question over and over and over again lately, which is how do I train to fight without ever getting punched or kicked or experiencing damage in any way? And the short answer is you don't. I mean, there are lots of martial arts out there that you can do where you basically train safely without ever taking a punch, just do forms. And that's fine if that's what you want to do, but combat sports, that's a totally different thing. You actually have to get in the ring and scrap. So another question that I get a lot is, how do I spar more safely? And I've made a few videos about that, and well, here's another one. One of the most important cues I could give you is pulling the punches. So what we're doing here is light contact sparring. Now there are a few different types of sparring. There is no contact or touch sparring, there's light contact sparring, and anything above light contact is basically full contact. It's a fight. So the big difference between light and full contact, well, one, we're slowing down the strikes a little bit. Basically asking ourselves, how slow can we throw it and still connect, without getting it blocked or whatever. But one of the bigger cues, one of the most important cues I can give you about light contact sparring, when you're wearing boxing gloves anyway, is keep your hand open inside the glove on impact, instead of squeezing it tight to add that rock-solid finish to the punch. Now you have to remember, during light contact sparring, the goal is not to damage your training partner. It's to learn. Because if you damage your training partners, well, you're going to run short on training partners, and you'll never log the number of hours of mat time and ring time and cage time you need to be a decent fighter. And I love the way Igor can spar, just pulling his punches, not inflicting a great deal of damage on his training partners, but still keeping the intensity up. So that's one thing people tend to lack sometimes when they do light contact sparring, is they lack the intensity. A few things I've learned from this guy is always throw one more punch than your opponent. Because if you strike him just one more time than he does, well, you're probably going to win that fight. I'll show you a few of the other rounds. Unfortunately, the film quality is not as good as this one, but let's take a look. So we got a different camera angle here. And man, this round I had a booger hanging out of my nose the whole time, and man, that was distracting. But one thing sparring teaches you is don't get distracted by the little stuff that doesn't matter, like boogers hanging out of your nose. Anyway, so I said this is light contact sparring, and yeah, it is. But I can't stress enough the importance of understanding this is still risky. I mean, we are throwing live punches and kicks at each other. And you're going to see times where if we don't keep our guard up, even light contact with our weight behind it, it's going to knock those heads back and cause some damage. Now, our goal is not to damage our training partners, but it is an inevitable consequence of learning how to fight. You will get punched in the head. You will get kicked. It won't be pleasant. But if you love sparring like I do, it's a whole different type of pleasant. I finally got that booger out of my nose right there. Yeah, you guys all wanted to hear that, right? Anyway, time to focus. So, I love clinch sparring. I love fighting in close, and I love the fact that Igor likes fighting in that range too. Because a lot of people get really, really squirrely when you want to get up close. They always want to keep a foot of space in between you so they can jump in and out and try to avoid all contact. Man, if you're gonna get in a fight, man. And by that I mean just learn to be comfortable being uncomfortable. 'Cause fighting's not comfortable. But get comfortable there. In that infighting range, that close fighting range, every range of combat. Inside the pocket, outside the pocket, toe to toe, on the ground, in the clinch, wherever. And the only way to do that is experience that range. And this was right after doing a squat session and teaching a jiu-jitsu class. Igor came in and he said, "Hey, coach, you want to spar?" And I was like, "All right, sure, why not?" Because I'm never going to turn down a chance to spar as long as I am physically able to do so. One of the most common questions I've been asked lately, another one, because I keep getting the same questions over and over again, is, how old are you? Well, I'll be 40 in September. And that brings me to another question I get all the time, which is, do you think I'm too old to start training? No, I don't. I don't care how old you are. If you're able-bodied, you're not too old to start training. Now, not everybody needs to get in the ring and scrap. Not everybody needs to be a professional fighter. But you're never too old to train. Got a good friend, Matt. He started jiu-jitsu in his 50s, and he's got a purple belt now and a whole bunch of gold medals from all these tournaments he's done. Guy trains twice a day and loves it. Now, back to sparring here. I wasn't too happy with this round because I felt that I was backing up too much. I was fighting a little too defensively. The thing I said about Igor throwing one more punch than the other guy, when he backed me up in the turnbuckle a little bit, yeah, he was doing a good job of that. Especially finding the liver. Man, landed a few liver shots this round. Fortunately, light contact ones. Because even light contact, those things suck. Full contact, yeah, that'll put you out. But if you want to win a fight, it's kind of like chess. Kinda. If you had to win a contest of athleticism before you could make your move, and if you lose that contest of athleticism, then you lose your move and your opponent gets it. Well, in that way, it's like chess. But if you want to win at chess, you have to play an offensive game. You always have to keep your opponent on the defensive. You always have to keep him moving back, trying to keep his queen safe. Trying to keep his king out of check. Something like that. It's kind of like that, just a whole lot faster, and like I said, battle of physical attributes. One thing I think is really interesting about the sparring with Igor and these other Russian guys who come from this Russian boxing tradition, and again, I know we're doing kickboxing, so the technique, it's going to be radically different. But you can see some of it here is the footwork and the falling steps. There's this rise and fall, and the right foot moves in conjunction with the right hand in a way that a lot of Western boxing coaches will say is bad and wrong and horrible, and that it won't work in a fight. But you know what? If it gives you the result you want, that's the right way. And these guys can land that right hand, even though it kind of looks like they're bouncing around a little bit. And if it works, it works. Love how we just have this banter going mid sparring session. But yeah, one of the most important things you can do while sparring as well is breathe. And always show respect afterward. But yeah, this is actually a sparring session from a different day. As you can see, I'm wearing different shorts, slightly different. But yeah, breathing, so important. One of the big mistakes people make when they start out, and even when they get to the pros, is they forget to breathe. They fail to connect their breath to their movement. You will move the way that you breathe. You can't move any differently than the way you breathe. So your breath has to be percussive. If you want your movement to be percussive, it's got to be sustained if you want your movement to be sustained. and focus on the exhale because the body inhales automatically. So when we punch, pa, pa, hus, hus, hung, sounds like that come out from the diaphragm. Let's talk about technique a little bit. I prefer catching kicks over checking them. And that's something I picked up training with Sanda fighters, visiting different Sanda camps, fighting in Sanda here in China, because Sanda is the national combat sport of China. And one thing that shocked me when I first got here was how easily these guys would catch my kicks and then toss me on the ground. Now, we're not doing takedowns this round, so when I catch the kicks, my objective is pretty much just throw one back and then release the hold on the leg and then just keep kickboxing. We're kind of doing a variation of K1 rules, if you will, where you can punch and kick all the legal scoring areas. See, I caught the kick right there, throw a punch and a kick back, released it, as opposed to doing a sweep or a throw or a takedown or whatever. And that lead leg side kick, that's another thing you'll see a lot in Sanda that you don't see so much in Muay Thai or American kickboxing or those other styles. It's one of those things that I'll use sometimes, not nearly as much as you see the Chinese Sanda fighters use. I mean, they throw it out like a jab sometimes. But I do enjoy that kick. It is something I'll use from time to time. But yeah, learning how to catch kicks, that was super useful. Super useful. And I'm so glad I invested the time into that. Checking kicks, you gotta know how to do that. But I prefer catching it, especially for the sport of MMA, because that allows you to get the takedown and superior position. So I fought professionally in 5 different combat sports: in American kickboxing, in Muay Thai, Sanda, K1 kickboxing, and mixed martial arts. So a lot of people, since I've had this YouTube channel going, look up my MMA fight record on SureDog, and they're like, oh, this guy only has a couple of fights, he must not know what he's doing. And man, I've had a ton of fights, mostly kickboxing, Muay Thai, Sanda. But I've had a bunch of MMA fights that are not recorded on SureDog. Here in the People's Republic of China, only my last fight here in China is recorded on the SureDog database. And for the record, it says I'm like 5'11". I'm 6'1", man. Fought in 4 different weight classes as well. It's something else it doesn't say. From middleweight all the way down to featherweight. Anyway, Igor, he does this really nice spinning back kick at some point in this round, which unfortunately the video got short, so hopefully we get it on film there. So yeah, it's just as well they didn't get those fights recorded, because man, there was so much cheating and fixed fights going on in China back then. It was a little bit of a circus. So how many MMA fights have I had? I think somewhere in the neighborhood of 17 here in the People's Republic. I can't say Republic right now. The People's Republic of China. It's like a little tongue twister there. Where is that spinning back kick he threw? It's a really nice one. Great control. One of those ones where you're doing light sparring and it lands, it doesn't hurt you, but you know that if your training partner was not being nice, you'd be like, oh, that would have just murdered me right there. But yeah, I love sparring with this guy. So, there it is. That's the one. Because even though he pulled it, it was super light, and all that knockback power. And man, that kick, that's a hard one to control, the spinning back kick.
Hi, it's Ramsey Dewey at the JX Fight Club, and I'd just like to give a shout out to my new friend Chris here, who subscribes to the YouTube channel, and apparently he's been a fan for a while, and he actually showed up to the gym in person, so hey, it's so nice to meet you. And yeah, we had a great talk here about sparring and all kinds of other stuff here. And yeah, Chris, anything you'd like to say to the folks at home?
I don't have anything to say.
Oh, no worries. Anyway, just thanks so much for coming out. Anybody else out there who wants to stop by the gym, we're here in Shanghai, China. Make yourselves known. Thanks for watching. Get out there and train.